second
cloud service.
Cloud services. So majorly, like which scenarios will go for the first, especially second, right?
So second, you will go where you there are some configurations that you have to do. Okay. Say for example, if you are using .NET Framework 2.0 applications, okay, where you need to do some configuration on server. Most of the times when you deploy on the Azure App Service, it will be always on the latest. Maybe it will not have support for the previous versions, right? So most of these things are the applications that you purchased, and they have given set of restrictions on that. There are some scenarios where you have, say, Active PDF or any of those tools, earlier versions, which didn't have a .NET versions but an ActiveX based setup. So they expect a local license to be deployed on a server, which obviously you cannot do it on a Azure App Service, right? So, and then most of the times you do web jobs, right? Web jobs are like, you want to do a continuous checking of polling a server, figuring out if there is a new order or something else, and it has to generate a PDF and send back. So that kind of services that you want to run, you cannot run it on an Azure App Service, but you can create a web job using a cloud service, which can run on a trigger. Trigger means something, a mail comes or something else, or if you have written a SQL Server job, which will say, okay, if there is a data insert in specific table, trigger this action, exe kind of stuff.
Actually,
those kind of stuff.
I'm already doing that with the third service actually. Directly app service I am doing. But when it comes to second, so that's
how are you doing the web jobs part in?
Publishing Azure web job.
Okay.
There it's continuously running. App service.
So that's what I'm saying. Those things, if you want to control through your Windows scheduler,
okay.
In your VM, it gives you a cloud service will give you a VM kind of setup.
You can see the machine.
You can see the machine.
Okay.
That's the advantage. But it takes care of a lot of things behind. So it's like you can consider it as a standard account, not an admin account. You got what I'm saying, right? So those kind of setup. Okay. I have to switch to project as is because I want to see the that complete. There are a lot of services running. Please bear with me. That's why the Mac has a starter. It's a close button on the right side. Okay, it's loading up finally.
Oh, you might need to duplicate the screen.
Yeah, I'll do that. I was just waiting for some of the services to close. Somehow that screen of shifting is not happening. Okay, project. Okay. Good. So file new project. Murphy's law.
Do you want to use the other system that we have? Would you like to try another system?
Sure. It's loading, but it's taking time.
It's loaded.
Okay, okay. If I switch, I'll switch. So 15.4. I like the name. So you can actually initialize a Git repository, which automatically creates a Git, and that you can actually commit and sync. You'll create a Azure API app. There's a mobile app also. I will create a simple Azure API app. So you see this? It doesn't require web forms or MVC. That's the beauty of it. So if I just run it, it gives me a Swagger console. Parallel, I will try to do that in here. If this runs faster than there, that surely should be. It's loading, let it load here. I'll try to maybe do a check-in here and check-in here, so I'll show that also. How much RAM you have in this?
32.
Wow. I'm running on 8. Yeah.
In which context you should use this API, that Azure API, or in what context we should
Compared to
yeah.
the normal APIs?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a few scenarios where you would actually do it, where you really don't want multiple deployments. You need a simple console, admin console, also with the same API. So, most of the times, admin consoles are for your own use, not for the end consumer. And you just want to quickly do something within that application, and you want to extend the same usage to a phone or something else. Okay? But again, the best way of doing it is remove the authentication piece, post it to the separate service. The data access services, use the token that is generated and use it in the data access part of it, and create multiple services. See, building one huge service which has around 20-30 controllers is of no use compared to making it a smaller versions, right? You can actually run a authentication service alone, authentication APIs alone, on a low powered system. Okay? You don't need a S1 but S1 or P1 for this.
Means you are saying that we can put the
OWIN part
in
in a separate instance. So once the unsuccessful authentication, you generate a token, right? That token is what people will use for the second service, because obviously you don't want this access to this one. You don't want the server to be accessed without a token, right? If the guy doesn't pass the first set, you don't want them here. So that way, even if somebody hacks the first one, they'll never get access to the second one, right? And most of the times you separate out the services. Like we have done a separate service for the email, separate service for SMS, and they can actually, I mean, like we are moving them to functions now, but it takes the power, I mean, like it takes the request out of that.
Scalability also.
Yeah, you can scale it on a different level. So, for example, the simplest thing is Pokemon Go, right? Like login is completely outsourced to Google. You log in with your Google account and you come back. Once you have that, it needs specific stuff, right? That way you, and again, if you're looking at Pokédex, Pokédex is separate service because that is not accessed quite often. but your maps and all those things are to be accessed then and there itself. So that runs on a different server. And then there is a spawning engine which will run on a different server. That way, when you separate the concerns and you make sure each of them you can debug separately, it helps you develop it faster. I mean, most of the times, the older way of thinking is let it be in one box, one application, let it take care of it. Now it's no longer the case, right? You want more flexibility in deployment and scaling. You don't want to scale your auth server, you want to scale your data server. You want to scale your lookup server. Most of the times we host the lookup somewhere else, and that will be heavily cached, right? All those country lookups and all those things, you host it separately. And that is cached almost every time. You can actually, most of the times, then data never changes. Host that as a separate instance, and that can actually run on a low-powered server because it's running on a cache. It's not running on a actual data changes, right? Okay, let me quickly run this. How many use ndepend? Ndepend. So it's one amazing tool for static code analysis, right? So how many of you have written a function which is like 100 lines of code and multiple for loops and hundreds of linked queries?
Who written or saved?
Huh?
You want to say who written or who seen that?
That's a good one. Yeah.
I think both the way.
Yeah. You've seen one, maybe. So this application kind of figures out where your code bottleneck is, okay? And how much of complexity is there in that class? Can you split that function into multiple pieces? And it tries to identify a common repeated structures and suggests this piece can be moved as a function so that you can reuse it in multiple places. And psychometric complexity, all of those things, it helps you suggest. It's one of the best tools that you can use. I mean, you may not read it in the beginning of the application, but when you are in the middle of the application where like you are actually scaled with like 300 tables and 100 classes and things like that, that's the best thing you can do. Okay, it's actually forbidden, so you go to Swagger. Okay, let me switch. It is the last side. I don't know, Swagger should be okay. Strange. This one. Okay, something is wrong. Let's switch. Something. Okay, Swagger is okay, Swagger is not installed. Yes, what's there? Swagger is there. Oh, my bad, my bad. And Swagger, we need to do some setting. Okay, in Swagger, if you want a UI to appear, you need to go and enable this Swagger UI. Now it should work. Okay, so this API works. So if I try it out, it gives me value 1, value 2, which is just a data, right? So the deployment, let's go with the deployment. I'm going to deploy this to an API server, Azure API App Service. Okay? Create a new one. So I'm logging with my account. This is your personal account?
Yeah, you can use that also. Or you can add yours.
I'll add mine. So I'll also log in with my account. Hope there is no application for 15 floor there. So, a resource group is like your own environment where you can host multiple applications. It's like your own sandbox where I want an API server, I want a web server, and I want a database. All of that can be one resource group. I'll create a new user group, resource group called 15 flow. If you see here, I cleared it today morning, there is no resources, right? There's no resources, no app services, nothing. Now I create a new app service plan. It tells me where to host it. So I want to use, say, South India, and I want to use a free one. Okay? So you can actually extend it to 7 GB RAM with 4 core. I'll tell you, I'll switch this later in the server itself. 15 floor plan. Cool. When I say create, it will start creating first a resource group, and then an app service plan associated with it, and then deploys a Azure App Service. Okay, it's deploying here.
What is the app service plan for our application?
So app service plan is, you can choose how much you want to spend on it. Okay? So, okay, it started creating already. This is the first one I created. This is the one which is created just now, I think. This is the previous one. Okay? Let me show you here itself how it, okay, it's deploying now. So, app service plan. Okay. It's deployed. Right? How will you test it? Swag. How many minutes it took? Couple of seconds, right? There's a underscore because the applications cannot start with a number. So it adds this. So I should be able to test it out, and I can actually run this on the server like this, and I'll still get the same data, right? So your API service is ready. Now, today, whatever, if I'm deploying it on a free service, it's like it doesn't cost me anything and gives me 1 GB of storage. So like I told you, the application which is looking at our email, dumping the PDF file, uploading it. and deleting the file never actually occupied a space. Okay, the service never occupied a space, and it was running on a free service, so it was, $25 was never used. That's the beauty of it. Okay, shared service, it gives you a couple of more things. Actually, nobody likes the Azure websites.net URL, right? Azure websites.net, and you want it to be 15thfloor.com, right? So that's when you can actually do that using a custom domains. Okay, what you can do, you have a 15thfloor.com, you map that domain to this, www. this one to Azure websites.net. That linking you can do, but you cannot scale with it. Okay, how you can scale? You can go to a basic one, which allows you to scale up to 3 instances. Okay, you can also set up a automatic instance. If you go for a standard one, it can scale up to 10 instances. That means you can actually set when you want to scale, whether number of CPU, when the CPU goes beyond 70% or 80%, I want to create another instance and then use it. That's what it is for. And with, you see this, you can actually upload a SSL certificate only in a basic mode. Okay, but here you see these 5 slots. This is for, I don't know whether it is visible. Okay, so 5 slots, right? This is basically for deployment. So you have a QA environment, you have a staging environment for your customers, customer 1, customer 2, customer 3 if you want to have. For each of them a different instance. You can use this as a best option. And a daily backup of your own data. Traffic manager, you can actually say based on which geolocation you want to allocate more resource and less resource, all of that you can manage. And I think as you go up, you'll get more instances and more slots. Daily backups, here it is one time, but here you can have multiple, multiple backups. This is mainly for log shipping. Most of the times what you do, you have a logs that you want to be shipped to another server, so that, not the SQL Server part of it, I'm talking about the application logs. And that, for example, Airtel, number of every call is recorded, not the voice, but I'm saying when it started, what was the number, how many bars were there, what is the signal strength on the phone that was receiving and calling, all of that they have to store. And when it dropped, that has to be stored. So this log has to be, like in a day they get 2 to 3 petabytes of data. 2 to 3 petabytes of data. Obviously you cannot use it on this server. It has to be, as soon as it is done, like 1 GB, ship it, clear the data, 1 GB, ship it. So those kind of setups that you do, usually they do it on their own servers, but I'm saying if you're doing the similar stuff, you can use these services. Yeah, and then if you want a really good performance on your design, you can go for SSD, cost you a bomb, but it's not that big compared to you buying that system. Think of it, 29,000 per month. It's the cost of a laptop that you spend. And if you're actually hosting it on any of these Azure, Geo data centers or any of the Res data centers or say Control S, it will cost you much, much more, right? So this is what it is, okay? Now, let me try, we have to show this instance part, so I'll switch to basic now. Okay, what all has been created so far? You see here, you have a API app, you have a plan, this is your app service plan that we talked about. If you go to your resource groups, okay, there is a 15th flow created. What all it has an app service plan. Okay, this was created by default, I think, so it's got it because I don't remember creating this. So when I clicked on yes, it got created, and then I changed the name. Now it's available. So the advantage of this resource group is, this was a temporary 1 month campaign that you ran for a customer, right? Those apps, what you call big billion days. They create a separate website. They get all the hits for that. Once the days are over, you want to terminate that. You might have created hundreds of pages there, okay? Couple of services, one separate database. All of that if you manage within this. For example, I can go and add an application. I can add a database to this. Things like that, right? So this piece, you can actually go and create a service, another web service, things like that. So the same thing, if I want to delete, I delete the entire resource group, one shot. That means from that moment, I mean, you don't have to go and actually delete an app service plan, a database, application. By creating your own resource group, it allows you to delete all of them one shot. Okay? Now, did I move it to basic? Yeah, it is basic now. Okay? So, what happens to your application? So, here, I'll show you the simplest thing, cost. Okay? Say, you have a website that is talking to your API server. And obviously, you don't want anyone else to access except for that server. You can set that up here. If it comes from xyz.com, allow the request or no. If I try to access that after that, if I set it up and say, try to access that server, it will not allow me to do it. Okay? And most of the times you want to set start if you are doing a mobile application. Right? This one, believe me, it gave us nightmares and late nights just to set it up for many applications so far. But then after we started using this, it kind of reduced a lot of that. Okay? Then, deploying a SQL server. Let's start the timer. Okay, we have 31. I'll create, say, 15 floor. I love the name for some reason. Okay, use a resource group called 15 floor. Blank database. Create a new server. Okay, yesterday I created a 15th floor. Okay, 15th floor, you cannot start with the number. So I'll put okay. What? Okay, you cannot use it.
That's a nice one.
Okay, now we created that. Pick a pricing tier. This is the best one. For all your testing, you can use this. As you go up, the pricing increases. Basically, it's controlled based on DTUs, number of DTUs. 10 DTU is good enough. But you can go up to database. What is DTU? It's a database transaction units. Okay. Basically, every insert, every request, every update and delete has a unit. And how many of those transactions that you can handle within that one DTU determines it. So there are ways to make it work, because if you have multiple databases, not like especially if you are doing a SaaS application, but you want to maintain independent databases for each and every customer, you want to manually create and automatically create a new SQL server for every new sign up and deploy the schema, all of that if you want to do. In some cases, some of the guys will be using too much of data, some of the guys will never access the data, some will have a, what you call, medium. If you buy a bigger DTU, you can manage all of that elastically. It really doesn't cost you much, because some guys using huge amount of DTUs and some guys using a less number of DTUs. Okay, so you can use this elastic data pool. So I'll just go with the basic one now and create, and your database is ready. How many times you got a firewall error when you're creating a database? That is again, I mean, it took us a good amount of time. What we usually do, obviously when you're testing environment, you set it to 002 to 255. But on a production environment, you give access to only API server. If your API server is hosted on 1, 2, 3, 4, You give only to that, and nobody will have access to that server apart from anybody. I mean, apart from your application. That's the beauty of those configurations. Okay, refreshing. Still deploying. So 5 minutes. Let's take it. So your SQL server is ready. Do you want to connect a SQL server? I think I overshot the time. So simple applications you can create very quickly using this. Okay. So let's coming back to this piece. Deployment slots. I told you about deployment slots, right? You can do a hot swap very easily. Oh, it comes with a standard. Let me change it. I thought it was there in this. Yeah, it was not. Okay, you have the slots, right? So I select this, update the service plan. So very quickly, you can do 3 slots. One is for your production, one is for your staging, one is for QA. Most commonly done things. And sometimes you want a UAT for your customer, then you create a separate slot for that. And most of the times you just deploy it. Okay, deployment credentials is for your FTP. Still deploying. Okay. Should be able to do that. Okay, quickly while that comes up. So firewall. Oh, sorry, you cannot do that for a database. You have to do that for a server. If you have your own VPN setup, you can give access to that VPN accounts only. So 0.0.0.0 is the best setup that you can have. And then you're done. You'll be able to access to various systems. Okay. Here there are a lot of things that you can do. We have done this a couple of times. The data that goes in and out, you want to encrypt, especially what you call column level encryption. All of that you can do very easily with this, setting it up and all. Automatic tuning. If it does its own algorithms to create an index. Most of the times it is recommended if you're in the development stages. But obviously once you are good enough to deploy to a production environment, you go and create your indexes. Let's go back to this. Hopefully it has allowed me to deploy slots. Okay. So I don't know why it's not coming. Oh, it's still in basic, my bad. Web jobs. There are 3 ways of triggering it, so it takes care of all of them. You can create a new one, and you can figure out whether it's a continuous one or a triggered one. A multi-instance, single instance. Only one at a time. Basically, if you're doing a concurrent ones, you can go with a multiple instance. But if it has to be running as a singleton, you can use this. How many of you use storage, Azure Storage Service for queuing? Cool. So queuing, say for example, say a registration happens. Okay, a simple contact upload has to happen from your phone to your server. Most of the times, when it happens, obviously the data is coming in a different format, and you want to merge it and actually make it into a proper database compatible stuff, right? And you don't want to do it at a cost of a customer waiting on it. So you put that into a queue, set up a continuous deployment here with a multi-instance. As and when it comes, you figure out pick the data using a queue and update the database with that data. So we've done that a couple of times, very easy to do. Setting it up takes a couple of minutes, but the service that you're going to write will take care of the additional data. I mean, like converting the data to transforming the data from whatever format it is into your database format. So that's one more thing. Hopefully this is done by now. Good. So let's go to deployment slots. Yeah, you can create a slot, give it a name, say, okay. Do we have time? I think overshot a lot of. I took some time. So this one, and this is easier to do. So you can do a hot swap if you deployed it directly to a beta, and you want to quickly swap. You select the swap button here, and it asks you from where to where, and you are done. Okay. And if you are using a say PowerShell scripts, which will come next, you can actually do that as a command line script. So you switch from beta to production, things like that. Okay. Cool. Preview changes. It will ask you before doing it, but if you want to do it automatically, you can do that from the next. Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
What happened if at the time of switching, there is a request coming? So how do you?
So that most of the times, if you have sessions handling, most of the times nowadays people don't handle sessions within the application. Application state, you usually put it on SQL Server, right? When you put it in SQL Server, in the next shift happens, it uses the SQL Server session to do it. Okay. If you're doing it in an active session, obviously you don't do it the swap. You don't do the swap during an active hours. Okay. That's the reason they usually keep it on the last. But this is one more progression, right? Earlier we used to do that. Active sessions you don't want to curtail, so you will always move the session state to a SQL Server. That way it takes care of this piece.
Any kind of delay or?
Usually, if you're doing a hard swap, usually there is not a delay. I'm not seeing that much of a delay at all. And because we maintain a session state, obviously, okay, session state, coming to that. Okay, I'll just quickly wrap it up. I will delete a resource group. See, this has almost everything now, right? I'm deleting it one shot. You have to do this every time if you're doing a demo. During the demo, because you'll forget it after the demo. Okay, cool. So now it is deleting all the things that we have done. Few minutes on dev test. There is a setup for dev test, which is a boon for IT guys. Okay. I don't know, maybe there's a dev test scenario where dev test labs. Okay, you guys can actually use this on your $25 account. Okay, what it does is it can set from what time to what time you want to use this. After this, turn it off. So you won't get billed for the unused time. Say you want to turn off a AS1 data server during office hours, and after you're done, automatically you want to turn it off, use this service. This was in actually beta for quite some time. I was part of one of the beta testers for that. It allows you to actually do almost everything, and that same setup is available next day morning, right? And you will not be billed for the period which is offline. And most of the times, I set it even for what do you call lunchtime. Turn it off during lunchtime. When I come back, it started. And there is one more thing you can do: auto start. That day you are not at office. You don't want to start it up just by that. You manually start it. But ending, it does automatically. So this is one of the best things that you can try. You can give it a try at your own convenience.
You have to add all the whatever you want to.
Yeah, actually, we have to ask for this. Yeah, I was going to access on another account, so that was working beautifully. You guys can try it. Okay, if any of you guys are very interested in getting more Azure related help directly from Microsoft, there is a group called Azure Advisors. This is a YAML group request done by Microsoft guys. You can directly talk to the PM and say, dude, this is not working. and we have done that many times. Okay, so you guys can actually one of your if you guys already have an MSD subscription or a Bespoke subscription, your IT admin has to request for it, or somebody has to say this is the guy who will have access to it. You guys can get access to it and try it out. Azure App Service, search for it and see what it does. Okay, cool guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hope it was helpful.
Thank you, Pooran. We'll take a quick break for like 10 minutes. We were supposed to take for 20 minutes now that we're on the So we'll take a 10 minutes break quickly and then come back for shakes.
We have a coffee in the pantry.
Yeah.